Hello friends, welcome to IS Point. Today is July 3rd and we are going to see the articles of the Indo. So before going in for analysis, I request you guys to please review and comment on my video and do subscribe my channel where I could make some awesome videos which could benefit you. So the news item which we'll be discussing today is step back. Say this article is very important with respect to UPSC point of view because it brings in the Indo-China border dispute. So we'll look at this article in detail, and the next article is written off in the hinterland. This article is all about the rural education system. Even we'll have a look at this article. And the third article is climate proofed and inclusiveness. This article tries to correlate poverty and climate change. Even we'll have a look at this article. And this article, victory in Mosul, is not very much important with UPSC point of view, but I will just try to tell a glimpse of it. See, Mosul happens to be a place in Iraq, which has been liberated by the Iraqi forces from IS, which happens to be a terrorist organization, that is Islamic State. Fine. So what the article tries to say is there is a need for responsible government in Iraq in order to win the heart of the people. So that's it from this article. Fine. So in the opinion page, there is no important news item for today. So we'll not discuss any of the articles from the opinion page. So we'll move on to the first article now. So before going to the article, I'll just give you the brief background between Indo-China border dispute. See, Indo-China border dispute is with respect to the two important regions. One is Aksai Chin, this region, Aksai Chin, and the other one is Arunachal Pradesh, as I have given in the map. Fine. So this Aksai Chin happens to be the westernmost side, and the Arunachal Pradesh happens to be on the easternmost side. Now, the problem rise here is this Aksai Chin has been demarcated by two lines. One happens to be the Johnson line and the other one happens to be the McDonald line. Fine. So this Aksai Chin region is between Jammu and Kashmir and the Xinjiang province. I have given you the spelling here. This Xinjiang province. And even the 1962 war, the Indo-China war, is for the claims of this religion. See, the conflict in this region seemed to be the failure of the British Empire. Because see, as I told you before, this Aksai Chin region is demarcated by two lines. One is Johnson line and the other one is McDonald line. Here the problem is the Johnson line shows Aksai Chin region in Jammu and Kashmir, and McDonald line shows Aksai Chin in the Chinese region. Fine. So according to the Johnson line, the Aksai Chin belongs to Jammu and Kashmir, while according to the McDonald line, the Aksai Chin belongs to the Chinese territory. So here lies the case of conflict. And even Aksai Chin is of great value to China. Though it is inhibited, it is because of China's willing to have and control on Tibet, it wants to have a hold in the Aksai Chin region. Fine. And now coming to the Arunachal Pradesh. See, this Arunachal Pradesh has been demarcated by McMahon line, which happens to be a psychological line. See, these lines have been demarcated by the British Empire during the colonial era. See, whatever lines I am talking about, the Johnson line, the McDonald line, as well as the McMahon line. So these three lines were demarcated during the colonial era. And now coming to the Arunachal Pradesh McMahon line. And this line happens to be the psychological line. See, here the psychological line means this mark was just on a map without reference to the actual landmarks. So what the British did is they just took the map of India and China and they just marked the boundary line between India and China without taking into the reference of actual landmarks which is present. So here lies the case of conflict. Now the problem is the Chinese government do not recognize this McMahon line, while the Indian government want to embrace the McMahon line. So here lies the problem with it. Fine. And the other territory which is in conflict with respect to India and China is this POK, Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Recently what happened is Pakistan has ceded 5,000 kilometers of area to the Chinese territory. So this is a cause of concern for India, and even the CPEC, that is China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, passes through this Pakistan occupied Kashmir. And this region with respect to the Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh, it is a settled zone. Here no conflicts present over here. And now the present conflict is in this region, that is the tri-junction of India, Bhutan and China. India, Bhutan, and China. See, this region is called Chumbi Valley. Fine, I'll be explaining this in the article. And this place happens to be the Siliguri Point, which is also called as Chicken Neck. And so the case of conflict is between this region that is called Chumbi Valley, which happens to be in right junction between Sikkim, Bhutan, and Tibet. See, Tibet happens to be an autonomous region where China claims that Tibet is a part of their territory. So, from the above disputes with respect to India and China, one could have a remarks that the Chinese claims are in geopolitical in nature, because see, China want to have a claim on Aksai Chin because it wants to have a hold in Tibet. Fine, and even it wants to have a territory in Arunachal Pradesh because Arunachal Pradesh has borders with Myanmar as well as Tibet. So having a place in Arunachal Pradesh can influence the Chinese control over these two countries. So it seems that the Chinese claims are geopolitical in nature, while the Indian claims are nationalistic and legalistic in nature. So we'll move on to. So coming to the article now, step back. See what happened here is the Dhokla Plateau, which happens to be this point, which happens to be a place in Chumbi Valley. It's a tri-junction of three nations. And recently, Indian government has placed army to stop intrusion of Chinese army into Indian territory. The issue involved is China wants to construct road here in this region, and it also bought in a few equipments to construct the road, and the Indian army is obstructing for it. And the Indian side believes is the China is carrying out this activity in our own territory. So it is also important for India to stop this activity because it gives China a chance to access the Siliguri point. See, Siliguri point happens to be the this point, which is also called as a chicken neck. So if this link is cut, then Indian access to the northeastern region could be very difficult. So this article tries to say that the region has witnessed a fewer tensions before than the western and the eastern sector. I have explained you in the background. So this article also tries to say that both nations, India and Bhutan, have a separate negotiation with China, which the Chinese government should take into consideration. And the article says that the People Liberation Army has forcefully bought in equipments to build the road, which upsets the peace in the nation. And this article says that the region was opened um, as a route to Kailash Mansarovar for Indian pilgrimage. See, I have given you a map here. I have shown you a pass which is called as Nathula Pass. Fine, which happens to be in pass in Sikkim, which connects Chumbi Valley, that is India and China. So it is with this Nathula Pass, the pilgrimage, Indian pilgrimage, reaches an pilgrimage spot, Kailash Mansarovar. So this pilgrimage, Nathula Pass, was opened a few years back, which brought in ties between India and China. And now, what the Chinese claims is there is a presence of military, and the military presence is due to the Indian pilgrimage accessing the Kailash Mansarovar. So this has brought in a concern. But the article says that the China presence of military for the pilgrimage travelage to the Natula is not a coincidence, because it is a deliberative action which has been taken by the China. So the article also tries to say that because of these actions, the relationship has been deteriorating. And while saying all this, the article also tries to say that the Indian government also has a few governments in areas, such as China's refusal to corner Pakistan on the cross-border terrorism, and also the India bid for nuclear supplies group. See, the nuclear supplies group I have taken a separate video. I'll give you the link in the description. You can access to it to refer the issue. And this article also tries to say that India ties with US on the maritime, and the India non-willingness to join the One Belt One Road initiative is not in accordance with the China. So this could be seen as a Chinese response to this. So this article says that now, uh, to resolve this issue, there is a need for a dialogue to bring in consensus, and to bring down the tension in the tri-junction region. So the China says that removal of Indian troop is an important precondition to talks, which is unacceptable to India. So which also needs the Chinese army to withdraw its troop and road building teams. And China should also take into consideration the relationship which India shares with Bhutan since its freedom in 1947. So this article tries to say that India signed the friendship treaty in the year 2007, uh, for the protection of Bhutan interest, and China should consider that relationship also. And it also says that the military ties with of India and Bhutan has been relatively good. So China would also take into consideration the point. And this article also says that the real scenario is with respect to the challenge in Bhutan territory, because this Dolplam plateau happens to be in place in Bhutan. So it will be a real scenario or a real challenge with respect to the Bhutan territory, and India would seek to maintain the sovereignty of the Bhutan, which is with respect to maintain the ideal ties with Bhutan. And till now, the Indian response has been working out clearly to avoid the issue to further grow up. But at the same time, this article says that it should engage in talks with China for a more with a more effective and careful manner to bring down the tensions in this region. So that's it from this article. So coming to the next article, writing off in the interland. See, this article is all about the education and the rural life. This article tries to say that in spite of having an educational infrastructure in the rural background, it is the upper class who gets the benefit out of it. See, the upper class, what I mean is those who are economically viable, or those who are good in status, and the rural or the downtown generally do not get the benefit of the educational infrastructure. And this article also tries to divide the students into two types: one who are good in studies and the other who are not good in studies. It says that those who are not good in studies tend to go for agriculture, and agriculture became unattractive right now, and there is a lack of job opportunities in the rural area. So this become a cause of concern. While those who are good in education, it becomes a source of talent supply for the cities, where the author also tries to brings in that this talent supply becomes an important factor for the coaching classes, where the people tend to join the coaching classes and try to write the competitive examinations. See guys, I'm taking online classes because I don't support rural migration, fine. And after this article also tries to brings in rural aeration. This article tries to say that the rural people tend to cope up and tend to cope up with their cities culture, and they tend to change their values, which is very good in nature. So it is generally towards the modernization of the cities, and rather than developing oneself. And this article also tries to say that our education system has failed to integrate the rural into a larger political community, and brings out certain mm, concerns or the reservations in our education system. While saying all this article tries to differentiate the farmers and the peasants. It says that the farmers are the landholders, while the peasants are the agriculture laborers, and the peasants are those who are generally prone to attacks, and the suicides are generally prone with peasants. So there is a lack of clarity with respect to the rural education, according to the author. And this article tries to says that India wants a quick modernization, where it is morally blind towards the minorities. So that's it from this article. So coming to the final article.